Andrew sweats, and Nathan got Andrew some paper towels.
Did he start the recording?
Yeah,
for real?
yeah, he really did.
Oh man. Hello. Why did you do that right then? You knew I was getting
didn't.
up
He
to
said
grab
I pressed
these paper
it.
towels.
He said it right as you were removing your headphones to go get this. This was great. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Greater Meeting Podcast. As always, I am your host,
We're doing this on purpose.
Andrew, alongside my two awesome co-hosts, Nathan
Hi, I'm Nathan.
and Josh.
I'm Josh.
I think you guys should start saying stuff other than I'm Nathan.
Well, you already introduced us. You say, these are my co-hosts.
You say, hey, everybody, you know, something. I don't know, whatever. It's good. Today's episode focuses on Joseph Part 3. Really didn't think this would be a three-parter, but there's going to be more than 3 parts. There's going to be 7. We're really going to dive into the last
We should not
part of
talk about hosts anymore. We should be anchormen. We should be the anchormen.
No, we're not. Isn't Anchorman just for like news?
We are telling the news of the gospel, the news of the good
good
news of
news.
Jesus Christ.
There you go. Maybe. But anyway, Joseph Part 3. We're covering the return or the reuniting of Joseph and his brothers. And goodness gracious. In the last episode we recorded, we talked about Joseph's fall from slave to prisoner, and then his rise to chief over all of Egypt, and how
Chief of Chiefs.
how God literally kept him and provided for him. And even though he was going through these terrible situations, we saw God granted him favor, whether it was with Potiphar as a slave and the master over all his house, or in the prison with the prison guard. He was favored and given position of power to where he was able to interpret dreams for specific individuals. And little by little, news of his dream interpretation, which came from God, got word over to Pharaoh. Pharaoh takes him out of Egypt after having a perplexing dream, and Joseph, through God's help, was able to completely interpret it and come up with a plan for the famine. Remember, the dream was 7 years of prosperity and then 7 years of famine. And now we find Joseph, after he's married at this point, during the 7 years of good, he's had a couple kids, Ephraim and Manasseh, and there is, as he was interpreted and as was divined by God, a famine throughout all the land. And the only place that had food was Egypt, because Joseph was able to devise his plan of taking about 1/5 of everything that was good from the good times
And shoving it in pyramids.
and shoving it in the obvious pyramid. No, I'm just playing. Maybe, pyramids or whatever method of grain storage that they had back then. And now it is time to open up the storehouses and get to spreading out some of the love. I think we will be starting with Genesis chapter 42. And complete disclosure, I don't have exact marks for where we will read, but luckily in today's Bibles, we have little, subtitles and places where you can actually see. But Nathan, go ahead and start reading us the first couple verses. So let's get back into it.
Can we just go through 18 of them? Or?
Oh, yeah. Read a good 40 if you could.
Or how many am I reading?
Just read 40. Just read, and we'll stop.
All right.
Read the first 5. I'm sorry.
Okay. When Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Indeed, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy for us there, that we may live and not die." So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt, but Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, "Lest some calamity befall him." And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was governor over the land, and it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke roughly to them. Then he said to them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food."
Good. So we have a pretty interesting moment here.
Where
They
do
all
you come
bowed
from?
down
Where do you
before
go?
him.
Oh my gosh, where did we hear that
Cotton Eye
before,
Joe.
Nathan?
Joseph said that in a dream when he was a little kid.
Do you remember, Josh?
Listen, I remember everything.
That was the most Trumpian answer I've ever heard. Listen, I remember everything. It was beautiful.
Listen. I wish that Nathan read this in the text that Jacob was basically like in a furious, like angry in an angry way. He's like, "What are you guys looking around for? There's no food here. We obviously know that there's food in Egypt. Just go to Egypt, get some food, you lazy bums. And you know what? Just don't even take my youngest son because he's probably going to return in rags of blood."
Because he knows they're going to die.
Every time I send anybody with y'all, they come back dead. You're not taking Benjamin.
They come back dead. Either they come back dead, or you kill a whole village, or just a bunch of like,
or you just find a prostitute.
Yeah. You guys need to chill. Just go get food.
That's funny. That's a good interpretation of how Jacob probably always talked to his sons. Anytime he got a chance.
What's funny is it's gonna
We're all
get
disappointments.
It's gonna get worse.
I mean, but yeah, like it's pretty cool. It's a really, I think Joseph probably had such an interesting like range of emotions. I mean, imagine last time he saw these guys, they literally first of all threw him in a deep hole, which we never talk about the fact that he probably hurt. And then the only reason they took him out of the hole was to sell him to slaves. And he hasn't been home in I don't know how many years at this point, but he's gone through so much that, you know, at one point he names a son, and the first son was like, he has made me forget the sadness for my father's home or whatever exactly it was.
Yeah.
But he sees his brothers, and literally exactly like Nathan said, the dream of remember the bundles of wheat all surrounded him and they all bowed down to him. How interesting is it? Again, we mentioned it when he first had the dream, but he has this moment where it's because of the collection of wheat and the grain and the fact that they were able to supply some from the years of plenty now that they're in the years of famine. It's so many layers. I don't know, like they're
so
bowing
many
to him.
layers.
The wheat bowed to him. It was like crazy. But
we're about to get into that.
But we're going to see how, now that he's in this position, it's kind of like the most ultimate, delicious revenge kind of story. Like, he has all the power in his hand, and he can do whatever he wants with this. And how does he decide to react? Nathan,
he speaks harshly.
Yeah, he knows who they are. They don't know who he is. And he can literally make or break them in any way he wants. Nathan, read a little bit more from verse 8.
Oh, verse 9.
No, read it because you were surprised. Did you already read that?
I read it.
Oh,
so
okay.
Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We're all one man's sons. We're all honest men. Your servants are not spies." But he said to them, "No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land." What?
Does that even...
And they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, "It is as I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. In this manner you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here.
Nah.
Send one of you, and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison,
Whoa.
that your words may be tested to see whether there is any truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." So
let's
he put them all together in prison for 3 days.
So let's just take this moment to realize that Joseph knows they're not spies, and he says this a lot, but he's just, man, he just wants them to spend one night in that prison. Just that he spent, so he's like, you're gonna experience what I experienced. You're gonna see it.
I love their defense. They're just kind of like they're constantly, we're just we're your servants. Like, we're just
We're
here just to
hungry."
buy some food. And he's just kind of like ripping on them. He's like, no, you're spies. You've come to see the nakedness of the land, which basically means kind of like you've come to see our weaknesses because you want to invade us or something. You want to
Yeah,
take
you
the
want to
food.
see from where our sources are. You're trying to see
Yeah.
whether or not we're weak or how we devise our methods of plenty while everybody else is suffering. It probably was something that was actually very common because you got to think about there
it
were
was extremely common.
Kingdoms and other principalities and little nation states or city states that would have taken advantage of other places during times of famine, during times of weakness, whenever their defenses were low. I mean, it was if you had any sort of strength, it was a very good time to go ahead and just collect and amass more territory. So he wasn't stupid in the way he did it, but there was 10 of them. You know what I mean? I'm sure Pharaoh was like, "Are you sure? These dusty looking sheep herders, bro? Like, they're the ones going to take down Egypt? Yeah, it's them for sure. They're spies."
Well, I mean, you gotta remember that they do have appearances of warriors as well, because I mean, obviously they've cut down whole villages, right?
I think they were just savage wild men. Like, you ever see?
Yeah, they were, but I'm saying, like, their appearances, yes, they probably look like sheep herders, but at the same time, when they're traveling, they probably travel with their weapons. So they probably have their swords. They have the things that they need to protect themselves with. And there's 10 of them. So if there's 10 of them showing up, they're all strapped. They're all probably well built because they work hard in the fields. They work hard with the sheep, because apparently working hard with the sheep is harder than working in the field. But
We're not going to.
we're not going to open that can of worms.
Just from the Cain and Abel episode. You've never let this go.
But I'm saying it's like he Joseph at the same point, like, it's also his job to keep the land safe as well, and why not take advantage of this opportunity and kill two birds with one stone and make it look like he's doing a good job in front of Pharaoh at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and it's interesting. He does this little test to try to, like, I wonder why he does this. I mean, it's maybe just to see if the other one's still around or if he's favored. Maybe he's a little jealous because he used to be the favored one. But the brothers, they have a moment.
I think he just didn't know what to do. I think he was just kind of like, he remembered the dream and he just
Acting
kind of
on
freaked
impulse.
out. He freaked out. He's just like, to prison, all of you, to prison.
But the brothers actually have a moment of reflection, and they kind of express their guilt for their past treatment of Joseph while in prison. It's really interesting. They kind of come to, and they kind of like, so you could tell that by their reactions, they said to one another that they were like, "We are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear it. Therefore, this distress has come upon him." And they were like, you could kind of tell that they've been carrying this guilt of what they did to their brother all these years. So, like, this type of stuff happened to them, they're like, "Man, we deserve this."
Well, there's a remorseful guilt, and then there's a forced guilt where your dad keeps, like, reminding you angrily, just like, "Yeah, like, I really don't like you. You guys got my favorite son killed and everything." Like, so with Jacob constantly throwing that down their throats
he
and
definitely would have been
reminding
throwing that in
them,
his faces. Yeah,
of course they're
that's
gonna
definitely
end up there. It's like a forced guilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's funny. Reuben has a moment. "Didn't I say to you guys, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Therefore, behold, the blood is now required." Like, they're just, like, at this point arguing in there. And but they did not understand that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. So they were speaking their own language, and so that nobody can hear them. And Joseph was pretending like he couldn't understand them, and he had somebody that could interpret their language. And Joseph has this moment where, yeah, you're right, he probably acted impulsively and just kind of like, do this, and he didn't think about it, but he was going through so many emotions, because it says he literally turned away from them and wept, and he returned to them and talked with them and took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. So he's like, he has this moment where he's like rough with them in person, turns around, and it hurts him, and he's crying, and he turns back around. He's like, "All right, take that one and tie him up." You know, I think that's the one specifically. Isn't that the guy that specifically decided to sell him into slavery? Because Reuben was like, "Don't kill him," and then he left, and his plan was to come get him later. And I think, wasn't it Simeon that was like, "Hey, let's sell him instead of killing him. Let's sell him to these guys as slaves." Who remembers?
Well, I know I said I remember everything, but at this one moment,
Josh?
I just simply don't remember.
Oh my goodness.
Listen, you guys also have to understand, nothing really has kind of been going right for the brothers for a while, right? Because the famine hit them. They probably think they're cursed, and that's why they're like constantly feeling guilty. I mean, what you guys said about Jacob probably reminding them, but then like the famine coming, them not having food, you know, they're probably feeling guilty this whole time. And I don't know. I like this story because it's kind of like a redemption story for not only for Joseph, but also for his brothers.
It gets beautiful as we go on. It's just we're kind of here at the beginning. He just met them, and it was kind of crazy.
And while Andrew's quickly trying to look up if it was Simeon.
I'm trying to remember. I'm almost positive it is, but I don't want to be wrong. Sorry. There's a lot of them.
There is a lot of them.
What are all their names?
Judah said it was Judah. It wasn't Simeon.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there you go.
So I knew I was almost wrong.
I always thought Simeon meant like gorilla or something.
It was Simeon and Levi, the ones that
Simon?
Killed. No, it was Simeon.
Simeon?
Simeon.
Simeon.
They're the ones that never killed all those circumcised guys. Reuben's the one that slept with Jacob's Bilhah. His maidservants.
So it was Judah that basically came up with the idea to
to
do
sell
this.
him.
It wasn't Simeon.
It was what he was like. What would he gain?
I think he just pointed at a random one. Like, tie him up.
He grabs him and binds them before their eyes, and then he gave the command. I mean, Nathan, if you would read from verse 25.
25.
Yeah.
Are they still alive? No. Then Joseph gave a command to fill their sacks with grain, to restore every man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. Thus he did for them. So they loaded their donkeys with the grain and departed from there. But as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey feed at the encampment, he saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of his sack. So he said to his brothers, "My money has been restored, and there it is in my sack."
Can you
Then their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying to one another, "What is it that God has done to us?"
All right. So one thing to clarify here as we're going through the story, I don't think I made it clear. He's keeping Simeon and sending the rest of them back, right? So Simeon's there tied up, and the rest of them are going home to try to convince Jacob
to let Benjamin come, because like you know how we didn't bring back Simeon.
Remember when
well, let us take Benjamin too.
Better. Remember how whenever we didn't come home with Joseph, Simeon's not here. Give us Benjamin, and we promise. That's literally what happens next, and Jacob is just like, no, absolutely not.
And Reuben said, "Kill my two sons if I do not bring him back to you."
Yeah, he's just straight up arguing. But Joseph, again, to their face, is just the rudest, meanest, harshest guy. He pretends like he can't say nothing, but literally gives them food and also doesn't let them pay for it.
You got to remember that when Joseph's speaking to them, he's not speaking to them in their language. He's speaking to them through an interpreter. So imagine you're seeing a man in a different language, in the Egyptian language, yelling at you and being all mean, and you have no idea what he's saying, but you know he's saying something bad, and then the interpreter just shows up and probably matching the same tone as Joseph, or he might be. It would be even funnier if he's speaking like super monotone, but Joseph speaking like super intense. That would be hilarious.
Or he's just like breaking it down, like, you should probably bring Jim. He's very upset. I'm not going to say what he said verbatim, but you should probably get out of here.
I think they say what they said verbatim, or else their heads got chopped off.
Or that's a very good point. I mean, it's very possible that they were pretty
being
strict.
An interpreter was kind of
a very important.
Maybe he had an interpreter checking on the interpreter. You know.
I'm just reading Jacob's response. You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And you want to take Benjamin? All these things are against me. Like, my whole life, everything is terrible. And yeah, Nathan said, Reuben literally has to put up his own two sons as like collateral. Like, believe me, this time will do. But he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead and he is left alone. Remember again, out of all the children that Jacob has, Rachel was only able to produce Joseph and Benjamin. So for Jacob, that's why it was so painful to lose Joseph. And he couldn't even bear the thought of losing his last remnant of Rachel because she died in childbirth bearing Benjamin. Yeah. And now there's a chance that he's like, their odds are, they have never successfully brought another brother home. Like they're just 0-3 or 0-2. So yeah, it was, if any calamity should befall him along the way in which you go, you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. And that's how literally they end chapter 42. It's pretty intense. But moving into chapter 43 now, and this is kind of like the way that the rest of Genesis is to go. Chapters are a little bit shorter. The verses, there isn't as many verses.
Shorter? Dude, okay. For this one's a pretty long chapter. They're all long, but telling a short story.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I meant to say. There's so many verses, but there's not a lot of story. Like literally, this whole chapter could be summarized.
It's just dialogue, but not really.
It's like a Tarantino film.
No, it's like it's repeating now that the famine was severe. It's like so it's going over that. Hey, by the way, there's still a famine. They ate all the food when they came home.
No, because they literally just. So wait a minute. They left.
They stayed.
When they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Egypt. So their father said to them, "Go back, buy us a little food."
So literally, they didn't go back for Simeon. Simeon has been in jail this whole time because Jacob was straight up like, "No, you can't."
Well, they probably gave them a week's worth. Maybe?
No, I'm almost positive they bought like very long, like at least 6 months.
No way.
I'm going with at least 6 months.
Each one of them did go back with a sack. But there's also, remember that like they each had a sack, but there's a bunch of them in that camp. Like each one has a bunch of servants and everything. So it probably was eaten up pretty quickly.
Because Joseph was in Egypt, Benjamin was at home. There was 12 brothers, so there was only 10 of them. They had 10 sacks, or they had a camel. They each had 2 sacks, one on each side of the camel.
It was each one. It literally says that each one of them had a sack. Okay, so if each one of them had a sack, they paid for the sack. But I'm saying at the camp, back with the Israelites, right now they're Israel. There's a lot of them.
I didn't realize that the sack conversation would be so controversial in our podcast. No, they had 1 sack. No, they had 2.
Well, I mean, they at least had 1 sack. That we know.
Can't prove 2, guaranteed to have at least 1.
We don't know if they had more sacks. We know camels have 2 humps. Sometimes they have 1.
When it's the way it's written, it shows that it's singular. So it shows that each one of them had a sack.
So Jacob kind of comes to them and is like, all right, you gotta go back to Egypt, buy us a little food. Again, he's written off Simeon in his mind. To him, Simeon's dead. Remember that he also doesn't like Simeon because of what happened with the whole Dinah incident. So
what happened with Dinah?
Simeon and Levi are the ones that went in and killed everybody in that city. Remember?
Oh yeah.
So for him, the moment Simeon had come back, he's just like, he's gone. He's no longer cooking in the kitchen with Dinah.
You don't even know the song.
I know it from you.
I was a kid. Used to sing that song all the time.
I still don't understand how it relates to what happened to Dinah.
Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know.
Someone took advantage of Dinah.
Strumbling on the old banjo.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, Nathan, read from 43, starting with the verse 3. This is Judah's response to Jacob when he says for him to go buy food.
But Judah spoke to him, saying, "The man solely warned us, saying, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For he literally said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.'"
Why did you
deal Israel said,
wrongfully with me?
Yeah, Israel said, "Why did you deal so wrongfully with me as to tell the man whether you still had another brother?"
That's a good point. Can we stop there? They didn't have to say that Benjamin was still around. They didn't know that that's Joseph. They could have just been like, yeah, man, here's what you see. From
their retrospect, like they were trying to bargain with the dude, kind of like, Man, like we got more family at home. They're all depending on
yeah.
us with this food. It's like, come on, like
And also-
we're all starving.
They may be murderers and adulterers, but they're not liars.
That's true.
No, they're lying.
No, they lied about
liars.
Joseph. What are you talking about? They very much so are deceivers.
All right, well, they're not liars anymore.
There's
as we
nothing
know.
that says anything different.
And the brothers are better now. No, there's no verse that says that. But
Well,
they
we do
said
know that Judah learned his lesson.
Judah. Yeah, Judah's gone through it too. Remember the whole part. But yeah, Jacob refuses to want to let Benjamin go.
So let me read the next verse. But they said, the man asked us pointedly about ourselves and our family, saying, is your father still alive? Have you another brother? And we told him according to these words. How could we possibly have known that he would say, bring your brother down?
This is just, I don't know why this is the funniest. I've never read this before and just was like, this is ridiculous. Like everything
Then
about
Judah
this
said to
situation.
Israel, his father, send the lad with me, Judah, and we will arise and go that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I myself will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we have not lingered, surely by now we would have returned this second time.
That's a good point. And remember that Judah still had a little bit of sway with his father because Reuben, I don't think there's
He was
that
the
relationship.
firstborn, right?
No, Reuben was the firstborn,
Oh, yeah,
but
Reuben's the
Reuben was
firstborn. Yeah.
sleeping with his concubine, which I don't think there's ever any coming back from that in terms of personal favor or relationship. And then we already talked about the fact that Jacob was still angry at Simeon and Levi. Reuben was the fourth one. And remember, he kind of had that identity of carrying on because from his line was Perez, and then that's where you get David and Jesus. So Judah is important and will receive an important blessing. So he kind of was able to sway his father a little bit through these very passionate words. Because their father said to them, if it must be so, then do this.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's
He just comes together with
he
some,
just tells them to go bring back some fruits and some things from their land, some little gifts for the Egyptians, and then take double the money. Take the money that they were supposed to give him and then give him some more money because he thinks that it might have been an oversight. Maybe it's like a test the Egyptians are giving them.
Yeah, maybe they're let me see if they're honest enough and they're not thieves to bring us back.
They're
So
legally kidnapping for ransom, it seems like.
I really
in
would have
Jacob's eyes.
I want this gift, some fruits and some balm and little honey, some spices, pistachio nuts. I love pistachio nuts.
So I mean, the way this story reads, it kind of reads like a play in a sense, right? And he's Joseph kind of has a change of heart the minute he sees Benjamin. I mean, so it says when Joseph saw Benjamin with them being the brothers, he said to the steward of his house, take these men to my home and slaughter an animal and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon. Which is very opposite to how he treated him before. He just threw it in
Let's
prison.
party.
He's like he wants
But the
to have dinner with
interpreter,
them.
you see, the interpreter, he accidentally
know
messed
what's
up the
going on,
word,
right?
and instead of saying they will dine with me at noon, they will die with me at noon.
Listen, guys, if I was you, I would run. He wants to. The only time I've ever seen him have people over for dinner is have you ever seen Game of Thrones and the Red Wedding? Get out of here.
Run!
No, but now the men were afraid.
They were even more scared.
Now
I
they
told
were,
you they're
they're like super paranoid.
They were already paranoid when they saw the money. They said they were greatly grieved or feared in their heart. They're like, oh no, I thought we paid them.
Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, it is because of the money which was returned in our sacks the first time that we were brought in, so that he may make a case against us and seize us and take us as slaves with our donkeys.
These guys are going through.
Why the
They're like
donkeys?
super paranoid.
They're going
That's
to
why you
take
should
us as
never-
slaves and our donkeys. They're going to take our donkeys, guys.
Let's take a quick moment as a GMP, the Greater Meaning Podcast, to say, don't sell your family members into slavery. You don't want that guilt in your conscience. You don't want that nagging at the back of your head for the rest of your life. And every time something bad happens to you, you're looking over your shoulder because you know that the divine justice is coming for you.
Why are donkeys?
fun.
Why are donkeys seen as so sacred?
They're not sacred. It's worth money.
Just
It's
everybody's
like
scared to get rid of their donkeys. I mean, look at even
Well,
Abraham.
imagine pulling
Abraham
up
didn't
in a-
want to give up his donkey to Ishmael. He sent them away. It literally said before that he had a whole bunch of donkeys just gifted to
Camels.
him.
Yeah. And he's just like, here, take this sack. Why don't we just keep bringing this up? Poor Ishmael was kicked out of there with a stick and a little sack on the end of it. Get out of here. Take this bow and you'll be fine.
Go hunt.
All right. Sorry.
We were at 19, basically.
Well, yeah. I mean, because again,
We're not gonna read the
it's
whole
a lot
thing.
of it's a lot of like just story. Just tell what happens, dude. It's like essentially, they sit there. Joseph kind of greets them in a peaceful manner and is like, "Don't worry about your money. I had it." And then he brought Simeon out to them, and and he brought them and gave them water and washed their feet and gave their donkeys food.
And now he says, your God. He says, your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. And I had your money. Then he brought Simeon out to them. So basically, it's like,
Yeah.
I like that
Joseph's.
I like that he's pointing this out, that it's your God now, because obviously to everybody else he has to act like an Egyptian, right?
That's a good
So-
point. Yeah, because remember, that was his whole thing.
Well, it's just
And I mean, the
it's
brothers were
interesting, right?
apprehensive, and they're fearing the repercussions. And then Joseph Stewart reassures them that and they're actually releasing Simeon to them and returning the silver. It kind of brings this point of like, okay, their guard is starting to fall a little bit, and their well-being. I mean, is your father well? They kind of talk to him a little bit. Your servant, our father, is in good health. He's alive. And you know that Joseph he loved his father, and that was eating up alive. That's why he keeps asking about him. Like, is he good? How is he? I'd love to, see him. Just kidding. I don't know who you are. Like, try not to let it
Listen,
slip.
I'm gonna go back because I do want to delve a little bit on the your God aspect, because I know last time last episode we had this discussion about Joseph now, like because he's an Egyptian and he's married to an Egyptian priest's daughter. Basically, it's like, we know that he still serves his God, right? But does he now accept the other gods as well in a certain retrospect? Because the way that he's phrasing this, your God and the God of your father, in front of the, I'm assuming other Egyptians that are probably at his house, maybe his servants or probably even his wife, it kind of shows like, I'm confused on why he wouldn't say, my God, your God, right?
It was. I mean, I don't know if it's too much to be read in there. It's just kind of how he was talking to him.
I know.
because
I'm trying to
maybe
see, did he take on the Egyptian gods when he was living in Egypt? Was that part of the deal?
Well, so I don't know if he did or did. I know Egyptian custom, because I mean later on in this chapter it shows that they did not eat together. The Egyptians ate by themselves because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for it is abomination to the Egyptians. So like maybe because of the cultural, he can't like refer like your God is like, he can't say that because he is literally the head of Egypt. The only person above him is Pharaoh, and he can't just.
We
now
brought this
all
up
of a
last time.
Yeah, so I don't know if I don't think he's worshiping the Egyptian gods. Personally, I don't think he ever worshipped the Egyptian gods.
Yeah, not at all.
But I think that he does hold like he is gonna hold their tradition in sense like, for instance,
he acts diplomatically.
yeah, he's a diplomat. Like there's a reason why he's the guy running everything. I mean, it's not just that, he had great dream interpretation. Obviously, he probably had more charisma and intelligence, and he probably had like political savvy. You know, he had to be a guy that's very, very intelligent and knows how to comport himself in public to be at the position that he is. You know, because he is essentially the highest position in Egypt next to Pharaoh.
Exactly.
So he can't just be some like you're never gonna catch him slipping. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
He's not gonna slip up.
he can't publicly.
He couldn't have gotten this far by slipping, you know?
Yes, but I'm saying like he can't publicly disrespect the Egyptian gods by saying that they're not real, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to like. What was going on with Joseph's belief system, right? Obviously, he believed in his God, the God of Jacob, but at the same time, he had to give respect to the Egyptian gods. Also, his father is a priest of a whole city, so it's like, I mean, it's you can see, his father-in-law. You can see what happened later on with Jesus when Jesus shows up and the priest basically, I mean, the Pharisees kill him. Imagine what's going on in Egypt if Joseph was constantly always telling them, like, my God is greater than your God. We know this to be true, but if he was to constantly say this in public to the Egyptians, I imagine there would be some type of uproar.
I think that God was protecting Joseph because God was protecting his people, and he knew that he was going to use Joseph. Through Joseph, he's going to save Israel. So I think that God probably just placed, you know, an immense love for Joseph in the heart of Pharaoh and immense respect. And it's kind of like people, because they knew that Pharaoh so highly viewed Joseph, they themselves immediately, like, you're not going to see him have a flaw, right? Because it's like, well, they believe that Pharaoh was God.
Yeah.
And so they can't, if Pharaoh said, this is the man right here, and then it was, the results also happened, right? He saved Egypt. I think people just held him in really high regard. And like, maybe even if Joseph said something against the gods of Egypt, they probably wouldn't even have heard it. They wouldn't even believe what they heard. They would have been like, nah, he didn't say that because, you know, he saved Egypt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that delusional... People are like that today. I mean, I'm not going to say which way with the politics, but like, think about how delusional both sides are about the people they believe in. They believe their guy can do no wrong, no matter what.
Yeah.
That's how people are, and that's how they probably view Joseph. I'm sure Joseph did probably say occasionally, like, yeah, you know, my God's actually real.
Oh, my God's better than your God.
They probably wouldn't even have heard it if he said it.
Yeah, and I think they also probably were more liberal of a nation. They probably were more accepting of other gods, and they weren't as pressed. Like, they respected people having their own religion. There was a lot of empires throughout history that would do that. I know the Romans were big on that. They're kind of just like letting you worship what you worship as long as you're in control of everything. And then Joseph being there at the top, it was kind of just a sign of, like, even the Babylonians, like, you know, in the Bible, they were, you know, as long as their stamp of rulership is over you, you could do what you want. So I don't think it would have been like a point of controversy if Joseph.
Even the Mongols.
Yeah, that was especially the Mongols. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of, it's pretty much a common thing.
Bowed to Genghis Khan.
Yeah, as long as Joseph was, you know, submissive to Pharaoh, which in the hierarchy on there, just like Daniel was submissive to the kings of Babylon, all the ones he served, you know, it was like, I don't think it would have been a thing where Joseph was like having to pretend to do rituals and sacrifice to Ra or like, you know, go to the temple there. I think the whole thing was that he stayed pure. He stayed as a righteous servant before the God that gave him that position. And remember, we kind of talked about that in the last episode, like he had to have been, because that was kind of like his whole identity. If he would have backtracked and kind of been back and forth, people probably would have found holes to poke at him in that. And
well, here's another thing. And because Josh the Bible doesn't say, right? And Josh does have a valid point. And I think with Joseph, a lot of people put Joseph and another person in the Bible that also had dream stuff, which was Daniel, together.
Yeah.
And we know that Daniel was super non-compromised. Like,
yeah,
it said, like, he prayed 3 times a day and, you know, stuff like that.
And he literally was in one of the highest positions in the country.
That was Daniel as well.
Yeah.
But Joseph, it doesn't say he prayed 3 times a day and stuff like that.
I'm
So
sure he
you
had.
can't just put that on him.
Well, you have to understand that the difference between Joseph and Daniel was that by the time you get to Daniel, you have the law, you had like a tradition of worship before God. Like Daniel, it's funny, I actually even spoke about that this evening at church, is like when Solomon made the temple, he said, like, if anybody faces towards his temple and prays towards his place, even if they're captive in a faraway land, God hear them, you know? And so every time Daniel prayed, one of the reasons he was caught, quote unquote, and thrown into the lion's den is because he would open the window and pray towards the east, towards where Jerusalem was. So yeah, uncompromising, but also able to be recognized for his wisdom, his governorship, and promoted to such a high level. So I think we're going to, that's, you know, it makes sense. But it's a good thought, because you're right. You have to maneuver through an entire other empire, entire other religious society, you know, and not get yourself killed. I don't know how else to say that. Like, not get
No,
Game
you're
of
exactly
Thrones.
right. Not to get yourself killed.
Yeah, and so no,
Not
it's a
by
good
Pharaoh,
point,
but
for
by
sure.
the masses. Sometimes
That's what I'm saying, like,
sometimes
somebody
Pharaoh is
like
put
a
in a
sa-
position of like he has to respect the masses and respect the culture, and sometimes you have to kill the person that like. I'm rewatching this show. I know you guys have seen it, the show Vikings, and obviously the Vikings, they have their Norse gods, and then they capture this priest monk, this Christian monk that I mean in the show his name is Athelstan, and he becomes the right hand of the king of the Vikings. So
Yeah.
sometimes for guidance, just like in this position, there was this prophecy of what is to come, and Pharaoh he gives Joseph a job for 14 years, for 7 years of drought and 7 years of 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of drought. So even if this man's not a believer, publicly he's like saying, "Hey, this guy interpreted the dream. He's a very wise man. He will be put in charge of this job, and he will be put in charge of this job throughout the whole land. And then this is just don't, have nothing to say. This is what it is."
He was literally given the ring, or the signet ring of authority from Pharaoh, and then put on a chariot, rode throughout Egypt, and everybody literally bowed down to him, to Joseph. That was a whole ceremony they did. But an interesting thing that you bring up, and I'm thinking about this, is like these subtle details over the course of 14 years and the daily political maneuverings. And there was, for sure, anytime you're at the top, you probably have people that are trying to connive against you, and there's types. I'm sure he overcame certain,
Oh yeah,
obstacles, and there was
imagine
intrigue
all the
and-
conversations at the dinner table whenever the father-in-law was coming to visit, and he's just always probably picking at Joseph's God, and he's just like, "Can your God do this?" I mean, like he might be trying to find similarities between. I mean, whenever you have somebody that's very religiously in the text and knows their religion and their word of their God, or I mean, how many times even my uncles they will sit at the dinner table and they'll talk about is like basically debates of things in the text. So I imagine the same thing probably will happen with Joseph whenever he is talking to the priest or whenever the father-in-law's in town,
Yeah. So let's get back to the story here.
Well, suffice to say, they all eat dinner.
They all party.
They eat dinner with them. They don't sit together. And Benjamin did get 5 times as much food as everybody else. Like when Joseph first saw Benjamin, he kind of, was very
That's his only full
emotional.
brother.
He got kind of emotional.
That's
when
his
he
only
saw,
full brother. Like that's
like he had to literally go. I think he had to go like separate himself and cry a little bit in the bathroom, and then like washed his face, and came out to them again. Like Joseph was very. Like when he sees his little brother, I mean, it's just kind of like his heart melts.
Yeah, like you have to understand that he's doing this whole charade, but again, it's a reuniting of like this imagine how crazy it was in his head. And they ate and drank and were merry, and that's how we kind of end in chapter 43. Moving into chapter 44, we have a very interesting little
Sidebar.
game that they play.
The brothers are now sleeping with other. I'm just playing.
And they kind of come into, after this whole party that they have, and they make merry and they make good, Joseph commands his steward of his house to fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry and put each man's money in their mouth of their sack, kind of the same thing as before, but he tells them to do something very sneaky. He says to put the silver cup with the mouth of the sack of Benjamin the youngest and with his grain money. So the servant, the steward, did this, which Joseph had spoke. And as soon as the morning dawned and the men, the brothers are going back home, Joseph lets them go off a little bit. And when they've gone out of the city, but not too far, he sends a steward to grab them and come back and, kind of confronts them with this phrase. If you want to read, Nathan.
Which verse?
It would have been verse 4, the second part.
Oh, okay.
And we had overtaken them.
When they had gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said to his steward, "Get up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and with which he indeed practices divination? You have done evil in so doing.'"
Divination?
Is that not how you say it? Divination? How do you say that?
Divination?
Divination? Divination. I mean, dude, when I'm being dramatic, I'm going to pronounce it wrong.
So he overtook them and said these words to them, and then they said to him, "Why does the Lord say these words? They literally just let us party with them. We're trying so hard to be nice and to not wrong him in any way. We brought back to you from the land money which we found in our mouth of the sack, or mouth of our sacks. How can we steal silver or gold from the Lord?" And they're even to the point, if you find this from any one of the servants, let him die.
Yeah, and
they
found it in Benjamin's sack, and they were like, "Oh no, not that one."
What are we gonna do, Seinfeld music,
dude. Dad's
gonna be so pissed.
He's gonna be mad.
And this is, that's probably, their hearts must have sunk so hard because they spent months probably convincing their dad to let Benjamin come.
And that dude's like, "It's going to be my fault if he doesn't come."
And that's kind of what happened.
Reuben put his sons on the line, so it's
only
a big
Judah.
deal for him.
Judah does this.
Yeah, Judah.
And they come back to Joseph's house, and Judah has this moment where he takes ownership.
No,
Judah
doesn't put it. Reuben puts his sons on the line to his dad. Judah says that he will take blame. So you have two sons.
Yeah, you're right.
That take ownership.
But here, Judah steps up as he promised to his dad, and he has a whole moment where he talks back and forth and kind of intercedes for Benjamin. And we're not going to read because there's a lot of chapter. He pretty much replays everything that's just happened. It's like, "You don't understand. We came and we had to convince him and blah, blah, blah." But at the end of it, he pretty much just says, "Please, if you find favor in any way, let me stay and let the lad go. Take me as a slave. Do what you want with me, lest perhaps I see evil that would come upon my father." I mean, he's fighting. The brothers are there arguing.
Once Joseph sees that now even Judah's trying to save Benjamin, it probably, is like, "Oh man."
It speaks volumes to the level of growth from where they were. Imagine back before they were just willing to throw him away, and now they're willing to give their own life for their youngest brother, just simply on the fact alone of what it would do to their dad. And you have to see there was some morality, some regret, some repentance there in their heart, especially Judah. And it speaks, again, volumes to his character. We see that he's not perfect. He obviously had huge faults in the fact of the other story with Judah and Tamar, but it's beautiful to see that he's willing. One thing we took even from the story of Judah and Tamar is that Judah was able to learn from his mistakes. The moment he saw that he was wrong in accusing Tamar, he literally called her more righteous than himself and made sure she was taken care of. And he was willing to kind of put himself on the line. And just like he promised to his dad, he's like, "Listen, I'll put it on myself. You will get Benjamin back." And he literally lays his life on the line to try not to have him take this last hope for his father. He calls him the child of his old age whom he loves. And it's just Joseph, when he hears that going into chapter 45, he could not restrain himself. before all who stood by, and he cried out, "Make everybody go out from me!" Like he's like, send everybody out, because he literally couldn't stop the emotions that were overwhelming him right now. And it says he wept out loud, and the Egyptians and the Pharaoh, or the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Everybody heard that Joseph's having a mental breakdown.
I'm just wondering, like, what are the brothers?
What is going on?
What are the brothers probably thinking? If the brothers probably heard Joseph, they're just kind of like, "What is going on? Like, we just want to go home."
How much did he love that silver cup?
Why is the leader of Egypt this crazy person? Like, one day we're in prison, the next we're at a party, next thing he accuses us of stealing. Like, we gotta get out of here, man.
And now he's crying like a crazy person. Why?
Just imagine, I never thought about that up until this point. They just see this like bipolar crazy dude who has all the power, and they're just man, I just want some grain. Like, we came with money. Everybody else got to buy. Why do we have to be in your house? And this is when he finds out why. Nathan.
Well, the Egyptians also heard, and
they were sent out. The brothers in here, it was only people that heard were the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh.
The Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. What are you talking about? Nobody's heard it. Everybody heard him scream.
It said, so no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brother. He wept out loud.
Yeah, but he wept out loud.
I think that
and the
it
house
was
of Pharaoh
just.
heard it.
It wasn't just that he was loud. He probably was weeping very loud, but I think maybe it was just a retrospective saying that he wept so loud that the servants were talking, and the rumors went all the way to the house of Pharaoh, where you're
right.
Servants. The rumors of servants spread wildly and quickly.
But after this, he finally has this, like, he was moved to the point of breaking down. You have to think, Joseph, for years, I mean, he was a boy when he was thrown into the mercy of slavery, and he worked his way up. And imagine working your way up and then falling back down, and then working your way up and then still being forgotten in prison, and then finally given some grace, but you were still away from home and away from where you feel like you truly belong. And he's gone through this crazy hero's journey, and he's finally found some peace. And then all of a sudden, his history is thrown back in his face by his brothers showing up. It all culminates to this climactic moment where he pulls his brothers in. Nathan, if you could read from verse 3.
I think this is a hilarious thing. All right,
I was trying to make it dramatic and beautiful, but let's go ahead.
It is kind of Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Does my father still live?"
I'm sure he didn't do it like that.
But listen, read the text. Like, "I am Joseph. Does my father still live?" And his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed. They were probably like, "What, dude? Who?
Bro.
Your name's Joseph? I thought it was
Rapna Paneha."
And then he's like, "Please come here." So they came near, and he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." At that point, I bet you they were just like, "What?" "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do you not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here? For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout the land of Egypt."
Now hurry up and go to my father and say to him, "Thus says your son Joseph.
God has made me lord of all Egypts. Come down to me. Do not tarry." What does tarry mean? "You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me, you and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine."
Yeah, that's
and behold your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, see that it is my mouth that speaks to you.
Nathan.
It's a very long sentence.
It just, it's a lot. But that's just, word gets out. He says he falls on his brother's neck, and they start crying. and they wept and they kissed all his
It's just
brothers
a
and
sad
wept over him.
moment.
They just
I mean,
have this. They have
Joseph's
a beautiful
over there
like
playing undercover boss this whole time to them, and he does this final reveal, and he's just like, "Where is my father?" You know, it's like,
Why would he be like, I'm so glad you guys, my best friends, are good? You know, like he admits that, you know, it's his brothers and he wants to do them well, but really his father is who he loves, and Benjamin, he falls over his neck and weeps over them, and
like,
but it does
what
say
if- What if he brings up the dreams to them again? Just like, just remember the dreams where you would be bowing down to me?
I don't think he took this moment to gloat. He literally has a very famous quote here where he says that he meant it. Oh, that's later when he goes to his father. But the report of this whole scandal, like you were saying, gets out between the servants. And it said report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying Joseph's brothers have come. And so it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. Luckily, Pharaoh didn't have this moment of like, what are you doing? Like, why are you having this whole little side quest when you're supposed to be taking care of all of Egypt? Like, how was everything? How was the grain distribution? You know, he takes a good moment. He said, say to your brothers, do not do this. Load your animals. Pharaoh says this to Joseph, load your animals and depart, go to the land of Canaan and bring your father and your households and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt. You will eat out of the fat of the land. Now you are commanded, do this. Take carts and take of the land of Egypt your little ones and your wives and bring your father here. Also do not concern yourself about goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. I mean, how much more favor can someone find as to where Jacob was at the breaking point of like, dude, just go buy us a little food. We're literally starving to death. And God used...
I don't think Pharaoh knew how many of them there really were.
Well, there wasn't that many yet. There was still a lot, but you're right. There was probably like way more.
There was most likely 1,000 of them.
I mean, there was probably a lot, but remember, they were kind of like strapped down because of this famine, and they probably lost a lot of animals, and the other people probably went away. Not just that, it's like other things happened, but they're literally like, hey, you're going to be taken care of. And it's a blessing to preserve the life, because if God hadn't done this, we have to assume that the famine was so bad that would have taken and decimated the entire family. If God took Joseph's entire life as a plan to preserve his people, that means that he had a foresight of knowledge, of knowing that if he didn't do this, if he didn't predestine this, if he didn't,
foresight?
Yeah, I'm sorry. If he didn't do this, then obviously calamity and complete desolation would have happened to the house of Egypt, or excuse me, the house of Jacob and Israel. So it's really important, but obviously we know from the histories that it's good at first and it's enough to preserve, but yeah, we're just going to leave it at that for now, because we're going to get into it. We're almost done with the book of Genesis. And once we get into Exodus, we're going to kind of talk about what ends up happening after Israel comes into Egypt. But they went up from Egypt and came into the land of Canaan to Jacob, their father. And Nathan, if you could read from verse 26, please.
And what chapter?
45.
Man, I am on 47. I kept reading ahead.
No, you're good.
Chapter 26. Verse 26.
Yes.
And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart stood still, because he did not believe them.
Yeah.
But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph my son is still alive. I will go and see him before I die.
Beautiful. And that's how we end 45. And so going into Genesis chapter 46 now, Jacob, other words, also known as Israel, took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And then Jacob spoke, or God actually speaks to Jacob in a vision here. And he comes to him and says, Jacob, Jacob. He says, here I am.
And he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again. And Joseph will put his hand on your eyes.
Yeah, Jacob is known to have dreams. It's interesting how God comes to him again, and knowing now what's going to happen in Egypt, it's all part of God's plan. We know that they're not meant to stay there, but God is literally telling him and foreshadowing. He's like, go up there, but I will also take you out of there again. You're not going to stay there forever, but there's where you're going to multiply. There's where you're going to be officially a nation. Because right now it's just him, his sons, and you're right, there's probably a lot of them, but there's not a nation of them. There's just the children and the tribe and the workers and probably the livestock.
Jacob, the gambling man that obviously always wins the gambles through God's favor. In his mind, he's just kind of like, man, I put in $1 and now I got $2. He sent Benjamin away and now he got Joseph, the dead son, back. And, and he's just kind of like, in his mind, he's probably bewildered by all of this. Kind of like, oh my goodness. He's definitely filled with a lot of joy just knowing that his other son is alive. When he thought that most likely, he probably anticipated that his son Benjamin being sent away to Egypt was probably going to die, and now he got his son Joseph back. So he just got a 2-for-1 right now. I think that's awesome.
He sees it as a major blessing from God, that God came and restored to him for him what was lost. I mean, there's probably a moment there where they had to be like, yeah, we lied. He's been in Egypt this whole time, but it's good. He's all powerful. You know what I mean? Like, imagine that conversation they had to have. Like, remember how we said he was dead and he was all this blood and all that? Yeah.
By the way, it does say that the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70 people.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Josh said it was 1,000.
I think it was 7. Dude, unless they all started eating each other, unless they all started eating each other and their numbers went down. But from before, when they met with Esau, like the dude definitely had way more than 70. Jacob had a lot of people under.
This is what it says. It says all the so verse 26, chapter 46. All the persons who went with Jacob to Egypt, who came from his body, besides Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2 persons. All the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. So I think it's just counting. It's 70 people just counting.
Related to Jacob.
Related to Jacob. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they count servants and,
Because
stuff like that. Remember, they don't really take that into account in the Israel census. Because,
Yeah. Exactly, because Abraham himself had 300 and something.
I'm sure he had a bunch of servants.
I'm sure they didn't lose all their possessions.
There's probably like 5 servants to a person
minimum, because it said that Simeon and Levi. Remember, we
your own food. Like, what's going on here?
Remember, Simeon and Levi went into the city of Shechem and killed everybody. But we know that it probably wasn't just 2 guys that killed every man with no fight. I'm sure it was him, and then the unnamed amount of servants and people that they were with.
Yeah, it's 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place.
So Jacob settles in a land called Goshen, which was around there. And Joseph actually comes out with his chariot, and they have this fateful reunion where they kind of talk, he says he falls on his neck and he wept a good while. Oh man. And Israel said to Joseph, Israel also known as Jacob, now let me die since I have seen your face, because you are still alive. Like, everything he ever wanted right there in that moment. Beautiful reunion. Nathan, if you could read from verse 31.
Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my brothers and those of my father's house who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for their occupation has been to feed livestock. And they have brought their flocks, their herds, and all that they have. So it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? That you shall say, your servants' occupation has been with livestock from our youth even till now, both we and also our fathers, that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians.
Now, full disclosure, before we go,
why?
I did look up why. I'm sure there's a very good explanation to that, but I really should have read that and was like, I should probably figure out.
Why were shepherds an abomination to the Egyptians?
I think it might have something to do with their class system, but the thing is that a lot of the Egyptians were not livestock. They were more farmers. They were workers of the field because of the way that the river provided soil and topsoil that they provided through farming, and then I think only the slaves would deal with like animals and stuff like that. From what I remember off the top of my head, it would be just somebody of the lowest.
Apparently,
Am I wrong?
the Egyptians were vegetarians. So if you were raising
Is that what your quick
livestock
Google
for,
search
I
said?
mean, I googled it too.
yeah,
I didn't see
it
the
shows that the
vegetarians
Egyptians they were vegetarian.
Oh,
They raised cattle for meat that were abhorred by the Egyptians.
interesting.
But why did the Egyptians abhor them?
It was probably something to do with the religious beliefs. Remember that the dream of Pharaoh was the skinny cows ate the fat cows. It was probably something crazy in his head that there wasn't supposed to happen.
I don't know. Maybe because they held certain animals as sacred.
Kinda
No,
like
because
Hindus and cows.
I see another article where basically it's saying that rich Egyptians they ate meat, but the poor. I guess that's the way they signified classes of people. Like the majority
Pigs and
of
fowl were
Egyptians
used
couldn't
for meat.
afford meat and everything, so they just stayed on a vegetarian diet, and all the meat went up to the rich class.
Either way, let's
Bulls were sacred to Ra. The ram and the goose were considered sacred animals of Amun. They had like certain animals that were saying, and the Israelites, they probably ate a lot of
lamb.
a lot of cow, and like they ate cows, right? Beef
Yeah.
was what's for dinner.
It's what. Oh,
Why was that so funny to you?
beef. It's what's for dinner.
Well, yeah, dude.
I remember the commercial.
I don't know if you know many Jewish people, but they do eat some beef.
Well, yeah, they can't have any pork.
Yeah, they eat a lot of beef.
Yeah,
The Egyptian
well,
diet
that
was
just
mainly bread and beer.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna put a footnote in there just because we're not gonna do the research here, but that was a really out of left field verse. It was an abomination. And that brings us into the final chapter we're covering for this episode, Genesis chapter 47. This is where Joseph actually introduces his father to Pharaoh. And we see Jacob, or Israel, you should call him, it says that Joseph then brought his father Jacob and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. That's interesting. He had him pray over him and bless him, and Pharaoh straight up asked him, like, dude, how old are you? You look very old.
And he tells him, like, I'm 130.
This is so hungry. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life.
And they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. And Pharaoh's like, what does that mean? What? I don't understand you.
Just looking at Joseph like, get your dad out of here, bro. Just take him home.
Please.
Just let him
Can
die.
you get back to taking care of Egypt now? Because
We're kind of like
Dad's
swapped.
speaking in riddles.
Amun over there is not able to manage things as well as you were, bro. Handle your business and come back. So Joseph situated his father and his brothers and gave them possessions in the land of Egypt and the best of the land and in the land of Ramses as Pharaoh had commanded. It's interesting. We didn't really talk about that, but Pharaoh didn't just like say, hey, you can do this. He commanded him to do, like, you have to do this. You have to take care of your family, give them of the best of the land. And it gave it to him according to the number of their families. And then Joseph goes back to managing in the chapter, or in verse 13 of chapter 37. It says, Nathan, if you would read.
Well, no, he goes back to managing the thing. You want me to read verse 37?
No, I mean, what happens is when the money failed in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, all Egyptians came to Joseph saying, give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money has failed. So there was a complete economic collapse. There was a complete, food
Well,
famine.
he started bartering. He started giving them grain for livestock after the money wasn't no good. And then Joseph in a shrewd manner, use that money to buy up all the land for Pharaoh.
We talked about this, Joshua.
What, dude? He just bought all the land from beneath everybody.
Yeah.
This is BlackRock, 100%.
The thing is, it's like, you see this happening today with corporations buying up all the real estate, bringing up the prices of homes, and everybody thinking that, oh man, my home is worth a lot because the market's crazy. Market's only crazy because it's big corporations buying up all the houses. It's not real.
The response is insane. From 18 to verse 18.
Yeah, verse 18. Hold on, let me get the verse 18. When that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, "We will not hide from my lord that our money is gone. My lord also has our herds of livestock. There's nothing left in the sight of my lord but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants of Pharaoh. Give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land may not be desolate."
So they kind of came to, I get that they did this, but they kind of were like, please take our land. That's all we have left. And give us some bread so that we can live. And only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had rationed allotted to them by Pharaoh. And they ate their rations, which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their lands. And it's just, Nathan, read from verse 23, because Joseph, this is kind of the managing he did during the famine.
Then Joseph said to the people, "Indeed, I have bought you and your land this day for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the harvest that you shall go give 1/5 to Pharaoh. 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field and for your food, for those of your household, and as food for your little ones." So they said, "You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants." And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt to this day, that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the land of the priests only, which should not become Pharaoh's.
So Joseph invented taxes and religious tax exemption.
Pretty much.
Well, it worked. And
Thank you,
Joseph. It sounds like whenever people are driven to a point of desperation, they will do anything for a little crumb of food. And the government knows this. The government sees it, and they will take advantage, just like how obviously the Egyptians did. They took advantage of the situation, and not only did they buy the land, but they also bought the people with it, and now the people have become servants to the land because now they are so indebted.
Cue the rebellious rock music that comes from the 90s. Just hear Rage Against the Machines and just them
Why?
rise against the system. Just because, it's not good for the people. It's great for Pharaoh.
The people lived, right? You know what's not good for the people? Death. That's not good for the starvation.
Oh,
they didn't starve.
This is kind of what happened in Germany too.
Oh, don't bring up Nazis.
I'm
don't
bringing
say the word that
up
gets
a
us
little bit. I'm not going to say the words. Okay. What happened in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s? There was this giant famine, basically because they were in such an economic despair, and they couldn't. The Germans basically were having trouble buying food for themselves. But you know who wasn't?
Because of World War I, they were in economic collapse.
Yes,
because they
if
had
you
to
know
pay
your
all these
history,
reparations. Yeah.
Exactly. But
they decided
because
to
of that,
go to war with the world.
Jews. Well, yeah, but either way, the Jews, they didn't starve. They were wealthier than everyone else in Germany, and the Germans were looking at them as kind of like, well, we don't like these guys. And then there came a person that kind of helped the populace of the people kind of group together and kick them out. I'm just saying it's kind of what's also going on here. You see all these Egyptians, the natives of that country. The Egyptians are kind of they're all starving, and then there's all these Hebrews there that are just being completely taken care of, and I mean, imagine Egyptian kind of like, you're taking care of these people, but we're starving over here, and now we have to sell our lands.
They were taking care. They were taking care of the people. It was the priests, like remember Joseph's father-in-law, that people like that didn't have to worry about anything. But it's not like any special treatment other than giving them the best of the land of Egypt, like that the other people didn't have a way to eat and survive. But.
And on a
then Joseph, it literally says in chapter 47, verse 12, then Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with bread according to the number in their families. So it's like they were being provided with bread, just as like with rations, just like how the priests were being provided.
Yes.
Well, here's another thing. That whole Hitler, so anti-Semitism was like a very popular. It wasn't, Hitler didn't invent that.
No,
there
was
a
already
movement
there
to blame the Jews back then.
Yes,
like not only back. I mean, it's still going on today. I mean, there's anti-Semites.
For some reason, it's always their fault.
Yeah, it's just it was a popular thing to do, and
jealousy towards the people of God. It's instilled into people with different gods and different cultures.
Hitler just latched on and blamed a certain people, which kind of catapulted him into. He was charismatic, and it kind of catapulted him into power. There was also a lot of nobody knew what was going on. There's a lot of reasons why Hitler rose to power.
Let's talk about it. So in 1940,
I mean, I don't know why I'm bringing it up.
I'm just bringing it up because of the similarities of what's going on in Egypt at the moment, where now these Hebrews are being taken care of completely.
I would
they don't
say,
have to.
I think it's just Joseph's. You also got to keep in mind Joseph's wife is the daughter of the high priestess. I mean, you could be like, yeah, well, they're related to the it kind of, it's just like, I think it was just Joseph's family.
Don't worry.
No, you're right, because
Egyptians
in Canaan, didn't Esau was in Canaan, right?
They were all in Canaan.
Yes. Yeah, they were all in Canaan, but there's a whole history of Egypt, like in 2600 or the 2000 BC, before Joseph, where they had constant kind of battles with Canaanites. So if they're having battle with Canaanites, I'm assuming that it could have been some of the Hebrews that were of different tribes. Basically, I'm assuming it could have been Esau's descendants that could have been, because they were always even Ishmael, right? Ishmael's people, it constantly said that they would basically constantly be at war with other nations. So
yeah, you're going to see once a couple hundred. We're going to get into it. The Edomites and the descendants of Esau, the descendants of Ishmael, the Moab. There's a lot of people that are going to end up clashing with the Israelites once they become a full nation. But remember, God says to Jacob, go down there because in Egypt I will make you a nation. In other words, he's going to settle them up there, and some time is going to pass where his descendants are going to start multiplying, and they're going to grow in number. And yes, there will be some anti-Semitism that comes out of that from the Egyptians' point of view. But let's end the chapter with Jacob and Joseph having a conversation. Jacob makes Joseph vow to him that once his time is over, because the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. And when the time drew near where Israel was supposed to die, he called his son Joseph and said, now that if I found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers, and you shall carry me to Egypt, or out of Egypt, and bury me in their burial place.
Man, you're just not good at reading that.
I'm sorry. That's why you're supposed to do it.
And he said, I will do as you have said. Then he said, swear to me. And he swore to him. So Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed.
Yeah, there's the second time that I just wanted to point out. We talked about the whole hand under thigh thing.
As a vow.
It's a vow. It's a sacred vow, a sign of promise.
If you want to know what it means, there's a couple episodes before where Abraham does the same thing to his servants
when he promises, makes his finding Isaac's wife, exactly.
Yes.
Essentially, it's just a sign of putting it under the thigh or in the groin region, where there was a sign of the covenant between Abraham and God, fleshly covenant. They're signing the circumcision, meaning that they are separate, a people set apart that follow God, and that without any type of religious artifact or something holy like the scriptures or the prophecies written down or the altars or anything like that. That was the holiest thing on hand. And so you swear by the covenant that we are a people set apart. Don't let me be buried with these people here in Egypt in the land that's not the land that was promised to me, but let me be buried in that. Remember the cave of Machpelah where Abraham and his wife and Isaac and everybody else was born? Let him be buried in that patriarchal tomb. So that's kind of where we're going to end. And Jacob swears to him and says he'll do this. And that's where we're going to finish today's episode. Jacob.
What was the greater meaning to you, Andrew?
So the greater meaning to me is that sometimes in life, you might be going through some struggles. You might be going through some ups and downs. You might be going through a bleak period. Like from Jacob's point of view, I mean, he was going through a famine and he was where God told him to be. Because remember, Jacob was told by God when he was with Laban, go back to the land of your fathers. Go back to this area. And he struggled to do that. He stopped in one place, fought with God in one place, avoided his brother. You know what I mean? Like he has this whole thing, but then all of a sudden nothing makes sense. And famine and people are dying. And God comes to him and says, go to Egypt and that's where I'll make you a great nation. But he didn't see it then, but we can see it in hindsight that God had a greater purpose and a greater plan behind that. In Egypt, this whole time when Jacob was going through these things, he had already lost complete hope with Joseph. He thought he was dead. He thought he was long gone. He had mourned him and now he's overprotective. But this whole time, God had been working in the background, making Joseph a mighty person in the land of Egypt to be able to prepare a place for Jacob and his sons so that he can fulfill what he promised. The Bible tells us that what the Lord speaks with his mouth, he fulfills with his hand. When God makes a promise and says, I'm going to keep you, I'm going to make you a great nation, he is working in the background. Even there's a song, even if you don't see it, he's working. Even if you don't hear it, he's working. A lot of times when God's working, we don't see it in the moment, but all we have to do is have trust and faith in him. And that's my greater meaning.
What is your greater meaning, Josh?
Hey, my greater meaning. My greater meaning would be basically with the concept of Jacob being a man of God in a place of power in a land that worships other gods. The fact that I would say, like, even when he sits his brothers down with him. And they have this feast, and he basically he's trying to, because he knows the laws there, and he knows that he can't eat he can't eat with them, so he gets rid of all the other servants, and he tries to basically be alone in the house, and then he has this feast, and with this feast, he's basically like pouring out to them, like trying to have a good time, but also the fact that he's still acknowledging their God, the God of Israel, the God of Jacob, the God of Abraham. He's still in a different land and letting it known that this God is greater than all the other gods. And I have to give basically like some respect to the situation that even with Pharaoh, sometimes we can be put in a place where everything can be against us, right? Like there's no way that, me at my job where everybody is all these heathens and they're all cursing and they're all like, they don't believe in God. They say, and they mock our God publicly. There's no way that I can come in and be a Christian and have these morals and be put in a place of position, be put in a place of power. But it happens. And same thing, it happens in this area where it becomes extremely impossible. A miracle which is not even talked about much, is the fact that Egypt, the Pharaoh, puts a man that worships another god in power. and respects it to the point where when he finds out that Jacob has more family, he's like, bring them all here. Bring them all here. Let's feed them. Make sure that they're well taken care of. So it's like sometimes we're put in a place of impossible situation to worship and to publicly acknowledge your own God. But if you do, God can bring that and bring it to fruition of his miraculous. And it's like, I am God. Watch what I'll do. So yeah, that's kind of my greater meaning with the whole Pharaoh and that whole situation.
Are you someone that God can trust to use you in a different place? Nathan, what is your greeting meaning?
You're such a nerd, Andrew. All right. So my greater meaning is this. In our culture, in modern society today, it's very in vogue to have that like revenge kick, right? Somebody does you wrong. Oh, I'm going to show them one day, whether it be in business, whether it be, political, like at work with work politics, oh, I'm going to make sure to bury that person under a bus. I'm going to let my superiors know that they're good for nothing. And, or in any facet of life, it's like we worship revenge stories today. It's weird. The Count of Monte Cristo, that's like a very well-known revenge story. People love it whenever somebody does you wrong and then you become great and now you could just show them. And then you go to the Bible, and then even in the beginning of the Bible, let's not even talk about what Jesus tells you to do if somebody slaps you in the face or stuff like that. Let's just talk about what happened with Joseph. This man was sold into slavery, was done wrong so many times, and he had his moment finally at retribution where he could have exacted his revenge on his brothers, and he didn't. Instead, he took care of them. Instead, and he was wafting back, and the thing that I like about the story is that it's not like he was so good-hearted that in the very beginning, he's like, I forgive you. No, man, he kind of made him go through it a little. But at the end of the day, he forgave them because he had the Spirit of God within him. And if you have the Spirit of the Lord within you, you can't have a vengeful heart. If you have the Spirit of God within you, you can't be a person that's like this I'm gonna show him attitude. It's just it doesn't work with the Spirit of Christ. It just doesn't work that way. We like to say it, and I don't know why we worship this in our culture. We worship this like I'm gonna get him back type of mentality. Why? That's another soul. Like our whole point in our lives as followers of Jesus Christ is we're supposed to spread the message of salvation. We're trying to save souls. Now we have to live our lives and we have to work and we have to, we try to work for promotions and stuff like that. But don't be a person that shows everybody. That's so wrong and off biblically and spiritually. Don't be that person that always has to, I'm like, I can't stand that today. Honestly, the best revenge, I've heard this before, the best revenge is success. You know what's even better than that? No revenge. Don't have revenge on people you don't like. You know what you should do to the people you hate? Pray for them earnestly. Pray for them like you're praying for yourself. Treat people with love and forgiveness. You know why? Because you did not do one thing to earn your salvation. You did not do one thing in your life. There's nothing that you did that God needed to forgive you and now save your soul for eternity. You didn't earn that. Jesus died for your sins. Joseph forgave his brothers, and was the salvation for Israel at that time. because of Joseph's selflessness, eventually Jesus Christ was born into the world. It's kind of funny how an act of forgiveness begot somebody that's going to forgive the world. It just kind of coincides that way. Take out that revenge mentality, that I'm a winner at all costs. Like, dude, that this stuff needs to stop, because I see it permeating in churches today, and it just doesn't work that way. And that's not the way God works. And that's my greater meaning.
That's
Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Revenge
You
is
guys wanna
mine,
hear-
says the Lord.
Hear an interesting conspiracy.
Sure.
So Paramount, right? Paramount.
The
Whenever you
studio?
see the what?
The studio?
Yeah, Paramount Studios. Whenever you see the stars, right? So Paramount, it has a symbol, right? It's got the mountain, and then above the mountain, you see all these stars coming in, and they're coming, and guess what? They're hovering over the waters, and then they go over and go on top of the mountain. And there's 22 stars total in the Paramount logo. So there's 22 stars that come in. And guess how many leaders of the fallen angels there were in the Book of Enoch? There was 22. And guess where they meet? They meet on top of a mountain. Now, para means basically to either come together or like an abnormal. So now you have this paramount where they come together, and it's an abnormal mountain, and they're stars. And now Paramount Studios, which what do they have in their movies? They have in their movies Hollywood stars that premiere in their movies. I don't know. I just brought that up. I mean, it was kind of wild.
Don't tell Josh about the Starbucks logo.
Oh, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole.
I
other
was
thing.
just, I'm not laughing at the conspiracy. I'm laughing about the timing of the place. I was waiting for you to try to relate it to the Joseph story, like, and the stars bow before the Joseph, but
No, it had nothing to do with Joseph.
no, it's just, hey guys, the Paramount.
What does Paramount make? So the WB does the DC things, right?
Okay, yeah.
What does Paramount? What's their big movies?
I don't know off the top of my
Like the
head.
MonsterVerse, like Frankenstein. I don't know. I don't remember.
Bro, I'm gonna have to look into this because that is stars.
I mean, you got even
You
the
said
Disney
22
logo, right?
stars.
The star basically there. It goes, it hovers above the waters, and then it creates this dome above the castle, and it kind of also illustrates basically. I mean, if we do live in a dome, it illustrates basically this rocket that gets sent, and it basically it just goes around the castle, and it's same thing with whenever rockets are sent into space. They always go at a curve, so they can't penetrate through because they can't go through the firmament. I don't know. It was just wow. I was even
we're gonna
watching.
have to do a whole.
I was watching Hercules today, and not the movie, the show. Did you know that there was an animated show, Hercules?
Yes, of course.
65 episodes.
There
I
was
did
an
not know
Aladdin
that.
show that they don't put on Disney Plus. That's really irritating to me.
There was a
because
lot of those.
I loved Aladdin.
But in other
as a
words,
kid.
in the Hercules show, so basically in the first episode, Hercules is given the job of bringing the sun, right? So he has to bring the sun, and the sun is stolen from Hades, and Hercules goes to Hades and steals the sun back and is bringing it up, and it says that he brings it up above the firmament back to the gods.
the Disney animated show, Hercules.
Yeah.
Again, I'm with you. I'm down for doing a conspiracy logos in modern media side section, but why?
All right, folks, look out for that merch. Everybody, we got merch coming. We're gonna have some. We're thinking about doing can lights, guys. Can lights.
All you construction heads out there.
Can lights.
Yes,
That's something that
We're
I
gonna do
install
some
on a
Greater
daily
Meaning podcast
basis.
for can lights. Some Greater Meaning podcast.
Spray bottle nozzles.
Yeah, spray bottle nozzles. That works.
Mm-hmm.
Just look out for it.
Just keep your eye out.
Watch
I'm building
for it.
a bat signal that says Greater Meaning Podcast.
Greater meaning bat signal.
Yeah.
What do we do whenever we see it in the sky? Do we just record an episode? Quickly, tell them the story of Abraham.
See it now. You are
Thank you
spies. All of you spies.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear and you want to support us, man, please share us with your friends. Give us that that 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Send us an email with what your greater meaning was from this episode. Email us at greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. That is greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and we are excited because next episode is our big 20th episode extravaganza. We are going to, it's funny how it lined up to perfectly end the book of Genesis. We're going to be finishing out the last little tidbits and ending the story of both Jacob and Joseph at the same time, as well as doing something special for you guys. So stay tuned for episode 20. We can't wait to see you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.